Welcome to today's Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn webinar. Today we are teaming up with our national philanthropy partners, HOBI, to discuss global citizenship and HOBI's International Service Project. Before we begin, we would like to say that on behalf of the members of Phi Sigma Pi, we extend our deepest condolences to HOBI on the passing of founder Hugh O'Brien. We mourn with HOBI, but also celebrate the thousands of lives he's touched and the leaders he's inspired. So we appreciate you attending this webinar as both HOBI and Phi Sigma Pi continue to support our shared missions and honor Hugh's legacy. If you have any questions during this webinar, you can ask them in the GoToWebinar box on your screen. There will be a poll in this webinar. During that time, you can pick one of the answers by clicking it on your screen. We have three panelists joining us today. First from HOBI is Chief International Programs Officer Sheryl Grincer. Sheryl's current focus is the development and implementation of global youth programs, cultivating students' leadership capacity and community impact. She works with HOBI's partners to provide leadership programs for students in Canada, China, Ireland, Iraq, Korea, United Kingdom, Taiwan, and Turkey. Additionally, she oversees HOBI's longest-running program, the World Leadership Congress, which brings together over 425 students and 100 volunteers from 15 countries for a week-long leadership development program at Loyola University, Chicago each summer. Next, we have Director of Alumni Relations and Programming for Phi Sigma Pi, Sarah Smith. Sarah is an alumna of the Epsilon Alpha chapter at Kutztown University. She manages the fraternity's alumni engagement, including the National Alumni Association and alumni chapters. She also assists with national event programming and serves as the HOBI Partnership Lead for Phi Sigma Pi. Sarah is a HOBI alum, and 2017 will mark her 10th year as a HOBI volunteer. Currently, Sarah serves on the Board of Trustees as co-director for Central PA HOBI. And Director of Communications for Phi Sigma Pi, Adrian Freeland, is with us. Adrian is an alumna of the Alpha Zeta chapter at York College. She manages communication strategy for the organization, as well as all digital and print communications. Along with our Executive Director, Suzanne Schaefer, she attended HOBI's International Service trip to the Dominican Republic this past January. Thank you, Sheryl, Sarah, and Adrian for joining us today.
It's absolutely my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to talk with everybody today. So today we're going to talk about global citizenship and international service, and I hope that this is something that's really exciting for everybody. Obviously, I've gotten actually some emails from folks and some inquiries about it, and I know we've got a nice group on the phone today. So hopefully I'll be answering some questions and hopefully exciting you about the opportunity to travel with us. As we do get started, I would love to kind of ask a quick question, really, of how many of you consider yourself global citizens? I have a feeling when this comes up, it's going to say an awful lot of you. Well, definitely over half. That's wonderful. Okay, so when we see this and we say, how do you consider yourself a global citizen? 57% say yes, 43% say no. And maybe that's just because you're not necessarily sure of what it means to be a global citizen today. And a lot of people use this term in very different ways. I consider this a pretty good explanation of what is a global citizen, and then somebody who is aware of the world we live in, beyond just your neighborhood, and you have a sense of a connectedness to the rest of the world, that you do respect and value the diversity that is our global community, that you have an understanding of how the world works, social justice. And I know in this one it says it's outraged by social injustice. And social justice is a pretty significant topic. We could probably spend an hour talking about just social justice issues and what is right and what is wrong. that you participate in community, which certainly all of you in this organization are committed to service and community service. And it doesn't mean that you have to go halfway across the world to do service. Being a global citizen is doing service in your backyard. I think sometimes the best places to change the world are around the dinner table or in your backyard, just by having conversation, that you're willing to act and make the world a more equitable and sustainable place, and that you take responsibility for yourself. And if you look at that, I think you actually probably, a lot of you would consider yourself a global citizen as you move forward, or at least want to become more aware of your responsibility in the world. We're exceptionally lucky to live where we live, and to be as challenging sometimes as it is to be an American, with the things that go on in our world. We're so unbelievably fortunate. And I think you become more and more aware of how fortunate you are when you do get out into the world a little bit more and see. And one of the reasons that we do this international service trip to a place like the Dominican Republic, which is still very much a developing country, is that it allows you to see how other cultures live and how other parts of the world live. One of the misconceptions I think that people have when we say we're going to the Dominican Republic for a service trip is that your vision of the Dominican Republic is, beaches and beautiful Caribbean and palm trees, and whereas that is all very, very true, there is also this developing nation, and in the developing world, life is different. And if you have never had the experience to travel to a developing nation, and especially a developing region, it can be a life-altering experience. And it does allow you to really appreciate where we are in this country, and also allows you to know that you have a connectedness to the rest of the world. When we take this type of trip and this type of excursion, we really do focus on the immersive nature of these programs. And we focus on the actual service, the culture of the people. I think it's so important. You can't travel to another part of the world and not learn about, the culture of the people there, because that's what makes it so impressive, to really immerse yourself in how people live and the values of the people that live there. We do focus on some leadership and, of course, an immersive travel experience. I'm going to tell you, we certainly do have a little bit of fun when we do these. We do partner up with a travel company, and it's a EF college study. So EF is Education First. It's the world's largest student travel company in the world. And one of the reasons that we do use an international travel company is that they provide us the services and really the backup that we need in the event of any kind of emergency or things like that. They take care of all the logistics for this. And I did learn several years ago the values of using a really qualified travel company. And so we do use a travel firm, EF College Study. So they actually help us with a service partner as well, and they coordinate all of this for us. So I want to take a little bit of time to kind of go through the actual program itself, the actual trip, and what we'll be doing when we're there. So we have done this program the last 2 years. We kicked it off in 2015, and these last 2 years we have gone to the Dominican Republic. We did go to 2 different locations. I'm actually hoping that this year we return to the location we went to last year. And we do go deep into the mountains. So when I say that people's expectation of the Dominican Republic is the beach in the Caribbean, well, you see that on the way in, and you'll see it on the way out. But you really won't see it. That's not where we do our service. We go deep into the mountainous region, which is really the center of the country, up into the mountains. Last year we were up over 7,000 feet. So you're up in really a beautiful part of this country. And these groups are fairly small, usually 10 to 15, 10 to 16 travelers, because you don't want to be too overwhelming for any community. The first year we did this, we went to the Angostura Eco Lodge and we stayed in these beautiful little rustic cabins. Last year, we went to Villa Pejon, which is an eco lodge up in the national park, and it was a spectacular location for us. There was a community, the community that we did most of our service in was located really just down the road a little bit, and we would walk down there every morning. But these are rustic accommodations, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a couple minutes. But it's a beautiful location, and as mentioned, you are up in the mountains, and this is the general sense of where we'll go back to this year. I can't actually answer the location question of exactly where we go until we actually have our group together to know, because we do work with service partners in country, and we go where the need is greatest for us. So it really depends on the service partner for them to say, this community is where we need the help at that time. Our request is that we return to Villa Pejon, and working with our partners, we will do our best to do that. It may happen that we actually partner up with a different project location, but this gives you a sense of really where the types of places that we do these programs. And then when we're on in country and doing these programs, you can see the types of projects that we have done. It's really important that we focus on sustainable service. So we don't actually come up with the service projects. We're not there to rescue people. We're not there to really solve their problems. What we come in as is people who can help them in that week-long time frame on the projects that the community itself has identified. So one of the things that I know some service programs have been criticized for is thinking that you can go in and you fix a problem and then you leave. We actually work with service partners that they identify the needs. They've identified the projects, and many times it's organizations that are deep in the community itself that are saying, these are the things that need to happen for this community to help with the sustainability. And so we are then the labor for those projects, because that then helps them become sustainable projects. So even this past year, we picked up where other groups might have left off. We started some new projects that another group would finish after we left, and the types of things that we have done. We've actually had a pretty diverse type of programming in country the last 2 years, and we've done everything from building sustainable stoves and wash basins to building and installing golden swallow nesting boxes, drawing out trail maps with local children, clearing debris, doing trash pickups, planting blackberry bushes, planting barrier grasses, the things that will help stop erosion in the community, the things that will help them build business. I'll give you an example even of these planting of blackberry bushes, which might sound very benign, but the reality is it's a plan in that community with this organization that they have now taught the women in this community how to make jam. So we planted the blackberry bushes that this season they'll harvest those, and they've built a stove and a facility to make jam. The organization brought in someone from the city to help the women learn how to do that. Then that jam goes to market, and it helps them sustain this community. And when we talk about the community, this is a developing nation. This is a community that doesn't have much material wealth at all, or that they're a strong community of family, and they look out for each other, but they have very little stuff. So when you can provide and help opportunity for them to sustain themselves economically, you're actually building the community. So again, the service projects that we do are really determined once we arrive, and we've worked with the partners there, and they'll say, this is what the need is for this week. This is what the plan is, because this is what we've identified as those things. So we're not going into a school that has had group after group after group put the same coat of paint on a wall. We're doing things that make a significant difference and help that community move forward. I know we have Adrian with us, and I would would love to invite Adrian to share some of her experience and some of her thoughts on the time we spent together last year, in this past year in the Dominican Republic.
Sure. I would echo everything you've said. I would also add that I was kind of a little nervous going in on, I know there are a lot of criticisms of service trips, so whenever I kind of realized we were doing sustainable service, that long after I left, these projects were going to have a lasting impact on the community that was there. That made me very happy to see. I think another big thing that I wasn't expecting, I think, is to be challenged so much on bringing my own stuff along with me to an international service project. So, you know, values and things, worldviews that you have are not the same as this group that you're visiting. And I think that was really important. It really shook up kind of what I brought to the table. So I felt like I left understanding that, you know, not everybody lives like me, and that's okay. They don't have to. And that the way that they do things works for them, and that I was there to help them in that. Another thing is that I learned was that the Dominican Republic is not hot. Well, it is hot in some places, but not everywhere. We were up in the mountains, and it's actually really cold up there during, especially at night. So, you know, if you have this preconceived notion of the Dominican Republic being this hot and humid place, it is in some places, but not everywhere. So that was really interesting. And I think another big thing that I took away was just the importance of water and how kind of we take it for granted. I think that we always have access to clean water, which is something that they don't have as much of there. So you have to be really careful about your water sources. And I think whenever I came back, I definitely was more conscious of the length of showers I was taking, you know, throwing away half-empty water bottles, things like that. I really try not to do that anymore. So it was an amazing experience. And I would also say, if anybody is kind of worried about not feeling included, because if they were, you know, a Phi Sigma Pi member who hasn't had a lot of volunteer experience with Hobie, do not be worried about that at all. You are made to feel completely in the group the moment you step off the plane, and I felt like I was part of the group immediately. And you learn a lot of new cheers, so that's fun too.
Which I never know if that's going to happen. But, I mean, as far as like the cheers, I'm like, it's up to you guys if you want to do that. You know, and you brought up some really good points about the things you learn about yourself. And thank you for mentioning that, because I think that's really important on this type of experience, is the fact that this isn't scripted. You know, we don't have this set itinerary of Monday at 10 a.m. this is what we did. No, it's far more. We adapt to the culture of the place that we go. We are there to be of service, and you do learn very quickly a lot about yourself. These have been some of the most impactful Hobie programs and experience I've had in the 23 years I've been affiliated with this organization. And very much in the same tenor of what Adrian said, the level of uncomfortableness that I had to reconcile, especially the first time that I went on this trip and led this trip, because all of a sudden you are very removed from your comfort zone, and that in itself is a wonderful leadership experience. When you are removed from all of this, you know, there is no cell service. You should have seen us walking around like with our phones in the air looking for the one bar that you could get if you stood by the third tree and the sun was out and there were no clouds. You know, there is no cell service. Electric is all based on solar energy, you know, where we were last year. Hot water is a gift, and you learn to appreciate it really, really quickly. And you do learn a lot about yourself when you're asked to stretch. And I think that's from a personal perspective, such a important leadership lesson and leadership opportunity for all of us. And, it's a shared experience that we all go into together. So it doesn't matter how you got there, as far as what your background is, because all you need to know going into it is to have the desire to want to be there. And we very quickly, become family, and we help each other out, and we figure it out as we go. And that's not saying that we certainly will have some things organized, but it's an opportunity to really learn and grow together. So let me give you some details about this, what we're looking at in January, and because we are looking to do this program again. This is open to basically anybody over the age of 18. So what's been really fun and interesting about this is that we've had such a neat mix of people who have participated. And again, this is only our third year, and they're smaller groups of people. But we've had, and I say it's open to over 18. I have allowed a couple of 17-year-olds with special permission, and really the age range that have gone on this trip so far is 17 to 65. So it's definitely multi-generational, because it's really open to anybody who wants the experience. So as PSP members, and this is not just open to you, but you could even invite, a family member or a friend. We have had siblings go. We have had mother and daughter go together. So it's been really fun to watch that. We've had people who have never heard of Hobie, but were a friend of somebody and wanted to have this kind of experience go with us. So it doesn't matter, how you got to this. If you're interested in an international service experience, this is what it is for you. As I did mention before, it is an EF College Study program. So we do through EF College Study. We have had college students participate in this and earn credit for it. So if that's something you're interested in, and if it's in alignment with anything that you're studying, talk to your professor, talk to your advisor. Last year we had one of our participants, and she was journaling everything, and she was earning 3 credit hours for her experience. She had to do a journaling project and write up a paper and do a presentation, but she was earning 3 credit hours for taking this week-long service experience. So, and that is not unheard of. It is a week-long program. We do this over the holiday break. So for most schools, we try to make it, so it's most schools, before most schools go back to school for the winter, for the spring seminar or spring season. So it's the 4th through the 11th of January. It is significant cultural immersion, which means that you will live and work and eat alongside folks from the community. We don't typically stay in a hotel in a city, with the exception of perhaps our first or last night. We are in the community or very near the community that we will be serving. And even this past year where we stayed, which was a beautiful, as I mentioned, beautiful location, top of a mountain basically. It is cold, but the people who run this location are from the local community, and they come and they cook, and they're just so gracious, they're so lovely, and you really do learn a lot about what their life is like. You can expect rustic accommodations, and there is indoor private bathrooms. We do make sure that you have those, but rustic accommodations along the way. There is a little bit of tourists. We do want you to have a little bit of fun in the DR, so we do a little bit of tourism. Depending on our flight inbound and what time we land, we'll see the city that we come into, and we always do something fun the last day in country, and it usually involves the Caribbean and beaches. So last year we actually went out to a little barrier reef, and which was a lot of fun. We've had participants take surfing lessons and have a beach day. So there will be a little time to enjoy what it is that the Dominican Republic is known for, and enjoy some sunshine and some beach time, usually right at the end of that last day. We typically are in a remote location, as Adrian mentioned. We've talked about we're up in the mountains, and you do have some time, free time. One of the things to adjust to is the cultural schedule of people who live in the Dominican Republic. As Americans, we tend to be a little bit more go, 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 let's do this, let's do this. That's not necessarily how the rest of the world lives their lives. So there is a little bit more, of free time as people take their midday breaks, and you have the ability to have, a little bit of time to go explore the local area. Where we stayed last year, there were some beautiful trails, and we did some hiking, and just to journal and relax and read and those types of things as well. So you will have some free time for those types of things. What you can expect from this experience is a significant amount of community engagement and really authentic service. So again, not things that group after group after group are coming in, and it's moreover, we get down and dirty and what is needed. And when they've identified their needs, we are there to fulfill those. So, and that might mean, with a big machete in your hand, chopping down barrier grass and replanting it, or getting up and digging holes for these blackberry bushes to go into, or learning how to mix cement to build a stove so people aren't cooking over open flame and you're dealing with all the health issues of that. You also can expect, if you speak Spanish, to have some significant language immersion. If you don't speak Spanish, I would not, don't let that be a barrier for you. I don't speak a lick of Spanish, and I've been fine. We have a guide who is with us from the time we arrive at the airport until the time we leave, by the name of Luis, and he is bilingual, and the people are lovely about trying to help you with what you need to communicate. So we always have somebody with us who can help communicate, with the people that we're working with. So do not let that stand in your way. The flip side of that is if you do speak Spanish, this is an incredible opportunity for you to really be immersive with your Spanish. And if you do speak Spanish, we'll all be looking at you saying, hey, can you ask this? So please don't allow that to be a barrier for you. Again, you can expect for plans to change. We, again, as a society and as a culture, we tend to be a little bit more focused on what the plan is and what the next thing is and what the schedule is. That is not the way the rest of the world works, and we adapt to where we are. You will learn a lot about yourself, and you really can expect to really do that. And I encourage people to do journaling. A lot of times we'll have some kind of leading questions. We do tend to, in the evenings, have discussion time and reflection time. And you'll learn a lot about yourself, and you'll learn a lot about the Dominican people. You can expect that you're going to, assist members of the community address the issues that are important in their lives. Not the issues that you think should be important, but the things that are really important for their day-to-day life. And you also, just to be perfectly honest, should expect that we won't have exact details until about a month out. So what we do know and what we do have, is the actual, our dates of travel are January 4th through the 11th. We do a gateway system because we work with people who come from all over the country. So we try to, in building a package and building this program, try to include everything we can that is predictable. But when you have people traveling from all over the country, there's no way to say, hey, this is where everyone's going to come from. So we use a gateway system. So everybody gets themselves to Miami. And we meet in Miami for the first time, and we get on a plane together. And you'd be really, really surprised and shocked about how quickly there is a level of comfort there with everybody. And it happens every time. And I'm always amazed. But you know what? We're here to have an experience together. It is open to anybody over the age of 18. And currently it's priced, the package price is $3,140 all inclusive. And that can be broken down into monthly payments. So when I say all inclusive, let me just go over for you what that actually means. So that means pretty much everything from the time you get to Miami that we can predict. So that means that will be all of your housing when we are in the Dominican Republic. So you can expect shared accommodations. So we were in cabins. These last two times we were in cabins. They had multiple bedrooms. This last year they were very comfortable, and they had private bathrooms, ensuite bathrooms. Really lovely cabins that you can expect up in the mountains. That does include your airfare from Miami to the Dominican Republic, all your ground transportation. So once we get there, it is, on a bus for several hours, usually up into the mountains. Last year it was on a bus and then on a safari truck for an hour. And it includes all of your meals once we get there, and it includes any entrance fees or anything that we do for enrichment activities or any kind of touring. So I said, like, we might see the city that we land in, and that last day we'll do something fun. It's all included. And we have a full-time service director, and anything we do in the evenings and things like that. What is not included in that package price really is your travel to Miami itself, the entry visa, which is $10 at the airport upon arrival, and it can be $10 US. It's very easy. You just buy it when you come in, you get a little slip of paper. Anything extra that you might want to do, like we might decide we have some time, as I mentioned, some people, we've done surfing lessons, we've done horseback riding. So if people want to do like anything extra that isn't in our itinerary. And then gratuities. So gratuities are really a part of the service industry, and I'll talk about more of those in a quick second. You do need to have a valid passport to get into the Dominican Republic. The entry visa, as I said, you get upon arrival. And you do need to make sure that it's actually valid through June of 2017. More and more countries are requiring that your passport cannot expire within 6 months of your arrival into their country. So you do need to make sure that your passport is valid. And there's plenty of time to get a passport. It says here that it might take up to 14 weeks because that's what the State Department tells you. Right now it's taking about 3. So you do need a valid passport. And as I mentioned, the gratuities, that is very standard, and especially some place like the Dominican Republic, which is really dependent on a lot of tourism for their economy. Gratuities are definitely part of it. And you can basically plan on about $10 a day for gratuities, and it is your discretion. I collect them from everybody as far at what you would like to give. So the suggestions that we use, if we have a bus driver with us, which most likely we would, it's $3 a day. If we have our tour service director, Luis, it's about $6 a day. And then if we have a guide take us around the city or take us somewhere, just $1 or $2. So just to plan for that. Those are the types of things that are expected. And then the other thing that I think is important, and one of the things that we'll focus on a little bit in this kind of lead our evening discussion, is we do spend some time, because we want to focus on the global citizenship part of this and knowing the connectedness of all of us, we'll spend time in the evenings talking about the global goals for sustainable development. And you don't need to know these beforehand, but this is something that it's a great opportunity to learn more about the global goals for sustainable development. This is something that I work with a lot in some of our programming, and I like to have this opportunity to really talk about that and really talk about, your impact in it, because it's significant. It's significant to understand, where we fit in the world. So if you are interested in participating in this program, you register through EF College Study Tours. So Hobie actually doesn't handle any of the registration or the payment. That all goes through our partner EF Tours and their college study tours, and it's all done through their website. And it's our tour number, which is 1-847-423-VV. But you can go right to their website and you can enroll through there. And it allows you to set up a payment plan if you like, which is a monthly payment plan. you can do, which breaks those payments down a little bit. You do need to, if you set that up, you're allowed to extend your payments out through the end of the year, end of 2016. Or you can just make a single payment, however it works for you. But that all comes through the EF website. And then finally, just, kind of reminders as you think about this, and things to keep in mind is that this is, this is a developing country. So you don't expect to have the same conveniences you experience at home. Adrian talked about water. You have to be aware of, and clean water is absolutely available to us. Don't be afraid of the fact that, you can't drink it out of the fountain or out of the faucet. But, there's water coolers, and you absolutely, but you need to bring a water bottle. You don't have the access to go buy, at Walgreens, your bottled water. You need to be prepared for that. Those kinds of conveniences aren't going to be available. Our goal on this trip is always to assist in the projects we're asked to do and get to know the people. We want to assimilate to their culture. It's not about, having the Americans come in and save the day. It's about being of service. And you can expect that plans will change because they do every time. And it's open to really, as I mentioned before, all of your members and alumni and friends and family and anybody who really has had a desire to want this experience. I think that this is something that appeals to a lot of people, but they may not know where to start. And this is a great way to start with an international service experience in a pretty safe environment with a group of people who are like-minded and that you'll enjoy spending time with. So that's really what I have for today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you, Sheryl. Before we get to questions, we're going to have Sarah expand a little bit about how you can be a global citizen in your community and your chapter. So,
thanks, Danielle, and thank you, Sheryl and Adrian, for sharing your experiences. And I'm one of the reasons, being a Hobie alumni and now, a Phi Sigma Pi member and staff member, is that I'm excited about this partnership is able to give Hobie experiences to more youth and volunteers and Phi Sigma Pi members across the country. And that the fact with this trip especially, you're able to bring in any family and friends who might be interested as well. So one of the things I want to talk about is how we can be a global citizen in your home community, your campus and chapter. Since we may not all be able to go on this trip due to time and money and just different opportunities. So I think one of the things I learned coming from Hobie and joining Phi Sigma Pi and sharing our shared mission is that, being a citizen wasn't what I thought it was. I thought a citizen was someone who stood and said the Pledge of Allegiance and, took pride in their country, but realizing that citizenship is really about being engaged and active in your community, whether that be, getting involved with different causes or helping a friend in need, that there's many different definitions of citizenship. So I think one thing that chapters and members can get involved with is really evaluating, where you feel like you have a sense of responsibility to. And Sheryl brought up the 17 global goals, and I think, after this lunch and learn, I think it's, valuable to take time and really, see which of these causes that you really are passionate about, causes that inspire you. I know looking at that chart, I could immediately identify 2 to 3 that I could really, either find a local organization in my area that supports or ways that I can get involved. Because I feel like sometimes global change, as brought up in previous lunch and learns about the social change model and service learning, can be kind of daunting. So having a trip like this would be a great opportunity, but wanting to have global change when you may be unable to leave the country can be a little frightening, and how can I possibly do this? So I think, you know, in terms of planning your year and even forward as a chapter, you know, take some time to have a discussion of, you know, what causes do you feel need to be met or bring awareness to on your campus and in your community, whether that be through direct service of giving time and energy to address the needs. So cleaning up parks, you know, volunteering for a local gender equality, you know, mission organization in your community, whether that's research and finding out what in your community can be met and how it can be, how its assets can be brought to learn more about it. Whether that's advocacy and education. So I know one of the things that, you know, big name celebrities are often known for is having causes and them being able to advocate and educate the public on them. So whether that be climate change or, you know, different sort of life and water, you know, safekeeping. So whether that be clean oceans or oil. And then also, how can your chapter be an agent of change? And that's something that we also talked about in a previous Lunch and Learn on the social change model. A change agent is someone who is a catalyst, someone who can inspire others to take action. And I feel like Phi Sigma Pi is a great opportunity to really bring awareness on your campus and in your community of these global issues. So, you know, whether that be holding youth service events where you're bringing awareness or direct service events, but think about how your chapter can be a voice.
Great. Well, thank you, Sarah. If you have any questions, please type them in the box now. I will ask them out loud, and Sheryl, Sarah, or Adrian can answer them. A question just came in. Can I get sponsors for the service trip?
So are you asking, can you go out and do fundraising and sponsorship? Absolutely. We've certainly had people do that, who just wanted to have this type of experience and went out and fundraised to have it. So absolutely, that'd be great.
Another question just came in. What are some effective service event ideas that would promote being a global citizen on our campuses and in our communities?
Okay.
I mean,
go ahead, Sheryl.
well, I was going to say, you know, there's so much, and I believe that actually some of the most effective ways to change the world really start around the dinner table or in the backyard or with your friends, because starting conversation about this is so important. If you were to look at something like this, is the 17 Sustainable Goals for global sustainability, it's things like clean water and access to things and ending poverty, which really entail, you know, things like making sure people have food, doing a food drive on your campus, you know, even a can drive for things for your local food pantry. That's impactful. And again, you know, everybody has different things that are relevant to their community, but looking for ways to address social justice issues. You know, what's happening in your community on your campus that you want to engage with.
I think there's also different ideas that you can see. Like, I know one campus, I'm not sure with the chapter there or who was responsible, but they did a project-wide awareness campaign to bring suicide awareness, where they put backpacks in their student area just to kind of visually show how many students a day commit suicide. And I think that's something that, you know, it was very impactful, and it didn't take, you know, a whole ton of energy. It was a lot more of the educational pieces where they had, you know, bios and stats along with these backpacks. And I just think, you know, even things of, you know, is your campus accurately recycling? You know, Hobie has a program at its seminars that are Go Green initiatives where they promote composting, recycling, you know, even pulling off plastic caps from bottles. So I think even looking at your campus and evaluating, you know, as recycling needs being met, you know, promoting bicycling and, you know, on campus or instead of driving cars and carpooling and looking at pollution, of just how can we make these little ripples to either educate and bring awareness or to make a significant change.
Great, thank you. The next question is, how can my chapter best support the Dominican Republic trip if we can't physically be on site?
Oh, that's a great question. So in the past, we actually have done, once we've gotten our assignment, really, from the folks in the Dominican Republic, we have actually done drives for supplies. So last year, it was not something that we were able to coordinate in advance, so that the folks really that went on the trip, we left a bunch of things. The year before, we brought a lot of things with us, everything from school supplies to what they were especially in need of was clothes for children. And they can be gently used clothes. And we ended up bringing about 3 suitcases worth of supplies, and then we ended up shipping more. So that actually is something, if you wanted to do a supply drive, it is a kind of a quick turnaround, because we don't necessarily know until we get our assignment and then ask the question of what's the greatest need in the community. Because I never want to assume what someone's greatest need is. You know, we want them to self-identify what their greatest need is, because quite frankly, it's not helpful to bring things that aren't of need. Then that just takes up space. So that is one thing that if you were interested in, as we get that information, that if your chapter and on your campus wanted to do a supply drive of what that is, and it might be something like school supplies or personal hygiene supplies, toothbrushes, and those types of things are usually pretty high on the list.
If they would want to do that, would they contact you?
Yes, that would be great.
Great. We will pass that and your contact information along as well. We have one more question. I see that Hobie also has a trip to Peru. Can I attend that?
Oh, so you've been on our website. We do have a trip to Peru in March, and it's Sustainable Service in the Sacred Valley. That trip really is through EF Tours, which is the high school portion of the Education First program. So that is more designed for 18 and under, but I have had college students go on those trips with us because of the itinerary. So I would be happy to talk with anybody. It basically means, yes, you can participate. You just need to recognize that the rules of that trip are for high school students. So as long as you're okay with that, that's fine. But that trip is open. And we certainly would allow people to register for that as well. That's a really neat trip. It's a little longer. And the Global Student Leaders Summit is part of that program, which is a 2-day leadership program in Lima at the end of that. But we'll be doing a couple of days of service out in the Sacred Valley. We'll be visiting Machu Picchu and having, I think, a pretty unique experience with that as well. And I'm happy to talk to anybody offline about that program. They can get in touch with me as well.
Great. I'll also link that in an email that goes out after this webinar. Well, thank you, Sheryl, Sarah, and Adrian for discussing global citizenship and Hobie's International Service Project with us today. A reminder that Hobie's Service Project will be taking place January 4th to the 11th in 2017 in the Dominican Republic. If you'd like more information, you can email hobie@phi.org. You'll also be able to watch and share this webinar on our YouTube page at youtube.com/Phi Sigma Pi. And that will be up by the end of the day. The next Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn will be on Friday, October 14th at noon Eastern. That is when we will talk about our personal leadership and Hobie's program for high school freshmen called Clues. You can RSVP at phi.org/LA Lunch and Learn, so it's starting tomorrow. Thank you again for participating today, and congratulations on earning 8 Leadership in Action points. Remember, your goal is to reach 75 points to earn your Leadership in Action certification. You can earn more points by participating in local, regional, and national modules or monthly tweet meets and the Lunch and Learn webinars. In the next tweet meet, it will be taking place on Saturday, October 1st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. The topic is retention, and you can RSVP at phi.org/tweetmeet. That does it for today's Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn webinar. Lead on.